Howdy, welcome to another installment of Dwayne Allen Guitar Concepts. Tonight we are going, I just noticed I have my things in my ear. Let me take those out. Sorry about that. Anyway, welcome to another installment of Dwayne Allen Guitar Concepts. We're going to do tonight's lesson back into the advanced category. That's my favorite one anyway. Seems like those are the ones that are, the advanced ones are giving me the most views for some reason. I'm not getting a lot of views on my beginning videos. I'll keep doing them, but you know, we'll see which ones do the best for me. But anyway, I want to talk tonight about kind of like analyzing a very short jazz solo, okay? I'm a huge fan of the jazz guitarist Grant Green. If you're into jazz guitar, hopefully you know who Grant Green is. He was an amazing jazz guitar player who was mostly known throughout the 60s and early 70s. He's one of my favorite jazz guitar players for a lot of reasons, but most of the main reason is that I just love his sense of swing. He really grooves and he's really soulful. You know, he's not a fancy guitar player. He doesn't have like a really extensive vocabulary, and he's not playing a lot of complex lines and things like that. He plays, his soloing is very, his style in general is very based on blues and R&B and swing, of course, swing and bebop. And he tends to be like the first guitar player that I start showing my students for jazz, because someone like a Wes Montgomery or like a Joe Pass or someone like that, they're pretty hard, they're pretty advanced. And if you're coming from a rock or a blues background, excuse me, one second, I dropped my pick, I'm not going to redo this. If you're coming from a rock or a blues background, Grant Green's solos are actually not that hard to play. They're pretty doable. They're not like super fast. They're not really like complex. So this solo that I'm going to kind of break apart a little bit is the first solo that I teach a lot of my students. It's actually a blues. I always like to learn, whenever I learn a new player, I love to learn how they play the blues, because the blues is kind of the foundation of everything anyway. And I want to see, how does this player approach the blues? What kinds of harmonic things do they do? You know, things like that. This solo has, I think, about 4 choruses, but I'm only going to teach one, and I'm only going to break apart one, just to get, you know, I don't want this to be a really, really long lesson, but I kind of want to play it and talk about what he's doing in there, okay? All right, so I'm going to attempt to play along with it. Let's see if I can do it without screwing it up. That's the first chorus, okay? First thing that I noticed when I started teaching this solo is I have a Grant Green transcription book, which I would highly recommend getting a transcription book for this, for Grant Green. Most famous jazz guitar players have them. I have one for Wes Montgomery and Charlie Christian, and you know, you can get one for anybody, Joe Pass or Jim Hall or George Benson. They have them for everybody. But I really recommend trying to learn solos by ear, but sometimes if you're new to jazz, that's pretty hard to do, so that's where a transcription book can come in handy. Anyway, so when I teach my students this solo, I really noticed that, you know, when we're doing it in the lesson, I'll put the metronome on, we're playing to the solo, right to the metronome and locking in. And then when we play with the record, you can tell that Grant is really playing behind the beat. You know, so instead of going like a bop, 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 like right on the beat, he's kind of, so he's kind of pulling on the time a little bit, and that's really cool. That's a technique that a lot of jazz musicians do to really make it groove more, and he really grooves on this one. So playing behind the beat is one of the first lessons you'll learn if you learn this solo, you know. I'm gonna talk about this solo instead of me necessarily teaching it. I'm gonna just break it apart and talk about what's going on, because if you want to learn that part of the solo, you just saw me play it, you can slow it down, you can rewind, and you can learn it note by note. And then I just want to talk about it and break it apart. So if you want to learn the solo, go back what I just played, see my fingering, slow it down, rewind, then you can learn it, okay? I want to talk about what he's doing, okay? So it's a B flat blues. So the first 4 bars of the solo is based on B flat 7. Okay. Now, pretty much what he's doing is he's playing lines that are right out of the B flat Mixolydian scale. Whenever I teach anyone a solo from anybody, I always tell them, okay, you got to know what the chord change is for whatever lick you're working on. And as you're working on that lick, think about that chord that you're on, and then think about, okay, what scale goes along with that chord? And then, you know, which scale form are they using with this particular lick? So for instance, Grant's playing it in the 6th position. So he's doing it like this. Okay, so if it's a B flat 7 chord that's going on, and he's playing that, I'm thinking he's playing B flat Mixolydian, because most of the time when you're playing a dominant 7 chord in jazz, you're going to play a Mixolydian or some kind of Mixolydian scale. So if you're in the 6th position and you play B flat Mixolydian, boom, the line comes right out of the scale. So that line he's doing, it's kind of like he's doing a descending line right down the scale. But he has a passing tone going in there. So it goes. Okay, so he's basically doing a kind of a pedal tone where he's staying on the B flat and he's going lower, 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 but always back to the root. So it's kind of like a pedal tone thing. So that's what he's doing. He's going right down the scale. And it's a very rhythmic thing. Do-it, 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 right? Very syncopated. So it's an example of like what you can do when you take a solo is you can, you know, play a syncopated line going down a scale and going like, you know, alternating between the descending notes and the root. Do-it, do-it. That's a concept in itself. So every time you learn a lick, you almost want to learn what the concept of the lick is, right? So that line comes right out of the B flat Mixolydian scale, okay? Now, then he continues the line by doing this. Okay, I'll do that one more time, a little slower. And that is still over B flat 7, but what he's doing is instead of the 6th position B flat Mixolydian, he's playing the 3rd position, which is pinky right here. Okay, this is in the advanced category lesson, so hopefully you know your Mixolydians by now. If not, maybe you'll learn a couple here. So this line here, he's basically doing a descending pattern from the B flat Mixolydian, but he's throwing in a passing tone like this. So the Mixolydian scale descending goes like this. But he's going, okay, so that's what is a big part of jazz is playing chromatic tones and passing tones and things like that. So that's what he's doing here. He's going passing tones, one passing tone going down, and then he kind of goes lower and he works his way up like this. That kind of looks like an arpeggio. Okay, it's actually a C minor arpeggio. He's doing a C minor arpeggio over a B flat 7. That's kind of an odd thing to do. Okay, what he's really doing, in my opinion, is he's playing what we call the color tones of a scale. So if you look at these 3 notes, he's playing the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th of the scale. Okay, so if you played like a B flat 7 arpeggio in this area and you added those 9th, 11th, and 13th, that's what he's playing. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. So that's a big part of what jazz musicians do is they play arpeggiated chord tones. And a lot of times those are what we call color tones, which is the higher, I call them extensions also. So he's playing, going down the scale, and then playing the color tones, 9, 11, 13, which is weird as he's playing the 11th straight. He's not doing a sharp 11. Most jazz musicians don't play a regular 11th when they're playing color tones. They usually do a sharp 11. The reason is that it kind of clashes with the 5th of the chord. anyway, I noticed that Grant doesn't do a lot of sharp 11s. He does the standard 11s a lot. So 9, 11, 13. Then he does a scale pattern going back up. So down the scale, 9, 11, 13, and then the scale. So, okay. Then the line continues, but the chord changes. At this point, it's an E flat 7. So now he's going to play this lick. And then there's more, but I want to just go over that. So let me show you that again one more time. Okay, this is over an E flat dominant 7. He's in the 3rd position, so he's playing this form. Okay, so what he's doing is he's basically going down the E flat mixed Lydian scale like this. And then it looks like he's doing an arpeggio here. Okay, that's actually a D flat triad. He's doing a D flat triad over an E flat dominant, right? So why does that work? Well, if you look at what he's doing, D flat, F, and A, or A flat. So that's actually the 7th, the 11th. Oh, I'm sorry, 7th, 9th, and then 11th. Okay, so he's going down the scale and then back into the color tones. 7, 9, 11. Okay, and then he goes up to this C right here. So that's actually the 13th. So he's going 7, 9, 11, 13. So he's in both of those areas, he's playing a scale and then kind of going up the color tones in 9th, 11th, and 13th. So he's going down the scale, 7, 9, 11, 13, and then he, and that's where he hangs out on the 9th of the chord, okay? So once again, he's staying, all of those notes are found in the E flat mixed Lydian scale, okay? So he's basically staying in the scale. He's not even doing any altered tones yet or anything. He's just doing a couple passing tones here and there. Okay, so after that, now here's where it gets interesting. So coming up in the chord progression now is when we have the 2, 5, 1 part. So it goes 1, 4 bars, right? Then it goes to the 4 chord, E flat. Okay, then it goes back to the 1, okay, but he has a long break, so it's, and then he does this lick, and what he's doing is he's preparing to go to the 2, 5, 1. So what he's doing is when the 2, 5, 1 happens, when he goes here, it goes, there's the 2, okay. Sorry, my D string skipped. So this lick here is actually preparing us to get to the 2, okay? And what he's doing there, this is kind of, it gets a little complicated here. This line is basically over a G7 flat 9. So if you look at it, the notes of a G7 flat 9 arpeggio, he's in the 3rd position. He's starting here, and he's doing a slur, chromatic slur like this, and then 3rd, 5th, 7, flat 9, root, flat 7. So if you take a G7 flat 9 arpeggio, that's what he's doing. This is leading us into the 2 chord. So he's using the G7 as what we call a secondary dominant going into the 2. Now, the piano player and the rhythm section's probably not playing that G, but he's doing it to basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of preparing you, I'll think of the word later, but he's anticipating, that's what I'm trying to say. He's anticipating the 2 chords. So, you know, we were on the 4, and then right before the 2 hits, he's going, and now here's the 2, okay? And then he's hitting the two notes, which is just two of the arpeggio notes of the two chord, E flat to C, right? So once again, if you know how to play a G7 flat 9 arpeggio, this is what he's playing. He's anticipating the two chord. And then there's the two chord, okay? Then there's a few beats of rest. Then it goes to the 5 chord, and he plays an F7 line. Okay, so that's straight out of F Mixolydian. 5th position. So he goes like this. That's an F arpeggio. Those are all the chord tones of F7 arpeggio. Okay, and then he moves the line down here. So he goes F7 arpeggio, and then 9th, he plays the 9th of the F, flat 7, 13, 5th. So when he's in this position, it's out of this F Mixolydian right here. And then when he goes here, he plays this F Mixolydian. So, okay, so before the 2-5-1 of the song, he's playing the G7 to anticipate the 2. 2 chord, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5, which is the F7. Okay, and then the chorus ends with, okay, do that again. That's just a chromatic line in B flat, so we're back to the 1 again, okay? So you're in the 3rd position, there's a B flat Mixolydian there. Passing tone. You got the idea? Okay, so I hope this gives you an idea a little bit about, how this solo is put together. This is something that I do with a lot of my students, that are learning jazz, is we'll learn a jazz solo and then we'll break it down. Okay, here's the lick. What's he playing? These are the chromatic tones. These are the altered tones. Sometimes they're playing alternate scales to match altered tones, and I'll point that out to my students. I'll say, you see over here he's playing a diminished over this chord and blah, blah, blah. This is part of learning jazz. You want to learn solos to build your ear up. You want to build up your vocabulary. You want to work on your swing feel. Nothing helps you more than transcribing and learning solos by the masters. That's if you want to learn jazz, actually any kind of music, jazz, blues, whatever. You really should learn solos from the masters and study them. You want to analyze them. You want to, look and see what makes them tick. You should be singing these solos to get the vocabulary in your head, all the phrasing in your head. What was I going to tell you guys about this solo? You should play with the recording. You should try to learn some of this stuff by ear. Okay. This is one of the things I do with my private students. If any of you guys are interested in studying with me privately, I'd love to work with you. I teach through Zoom and FaceTime or whatever. And these are the types of things I work on with my students. I like doing all kinds of solos. So if you like the lesson, please hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a great night.